North Korea and South Korea started as the same country, with the same people, split by the same line on a map. Today, one of them is one of the most advanced economies on Earth. The other can't guarantee electricity to its own capital at night. But here's the part almost nobody knows. For the first 25 years after the split, it was the other way around. North Korea was winning. This is the story of how a country went from ahead to isolated, starving, and armed with nuclear weapons. And the reason isn't what you think. In 1945, Korea wasn't two countries. It was one nation, occupied by Japan for 35 years. When Japan surrendered, the peninsula was split, not by Koreans, but by two foreign armies drawing a line at the 38th parallel. The Soviet Union took the north. The United States took the south. That line was supposed to be temporary. It became permanent, and it split something else along with the land. It split where the factories were. Under Japanese rule, almost all the heavy industry, mining, hydroelectric power, chemical plants, steel, had been built in the north. The south was mostly farmland. So when the two Koreas separated, North Korea inherited the machines. South Korea inherited the rice paddies. For years, that gap held. Economists estimate that going into the 1970s, North Korea's economy was still ahead. Its people had a higher income per person than South Koreans did. North Korea had Soviet and Chinese backing, an industrial base, and a 5-year head start on rebuilding. If you had to bet in 1970 on which Korea would become a global economic story, the smart money was on the North. But something was different about how each side used its advantage. South Korea opened itself to trade. It built companies that had to compete on the world market and started selling to the world. North Korea did the opposite. It doubled down on a philosophy called Juche, self-reliance. Officially, North Korea would need no one. Unofficially, it was surviving almost entirely on subsidized oil, machinery, and aid from the Soviet Union and China. Self-reliance that depends on someone else's checkbook isn't self-reliance. It's a loan. And in 1991, the lender disappeared. When the Soviet Union fell apart, the cheap fuel, guaranteed trade, and subsidies that had quietly kept North Korea's economy standing vanished almost overnight. Factories built for a world of Soviet support had no fuel to run. Fields that depended on Soviet fertilizer and machinery stopped producing at the same scale. Then in 1995, floods hit an already fragile food system. What followed is remembered in North Korea by an official name, the Arduous March. Between 1994 and 1999, North Korea suffered one of the worst famines of the late 20th century. Nobody agrees on the exact number because the regime has never released reliable data. But researchers' estimates range from the hundreds of thousands into the millions of deaths, out of a population of about 22 million. This wasn't a poor country having a bad year. This was a country that, one generation earlier, had been wealthier than its neighbor, now unable to feed its own people. And here is the part that should stop you. Even during the famine, the government did not redirect its resources toward food. While people were starving, North Korea's leadership formalized a policy called Songun, military first. Resources, fuel, and food continued to be funneled toward the armed forces and toward a weapons program the country had been quietly building for years. Within a decade of the famine's worst years, North Korea tested its first nuclear device. The state that couldn't reliably feed its own citizens had joined one of the smallest, most exclusive clubs on Earth, nuclear-armed nations. That is the real turning point in this story. Not a war, not an invasion. A choice made and remade for decades to protect the regime's power ahead of its people's survival. The result of that choice is visible now in stark numbers. By recent UN estimates, South Korea's income per person is more than 50 times higher than North Korea's. One half of the peninsula builds smartphones, ships, and some of the most advanced semiconductors on the planet. The other half struggles with chronic electricity shortages and depends heavily on trade with a single neighbor, China, just to function. Same peninsula, same starting language, history, and culture. Two completely different outcomes, built on two completely different bets about what a country owes its own people. North Korea didn't fall behind because it lacked resources, industry, or a head start. It had all three, earlier than South Korea did. It fell behind because, generation after generation, it chose control over adaptation and the survival of a regime over the survival of its own economy. The line drawn in 1945 wasn't really the thing that split Korea in two. the decisions made after it were. If you want to understand how the rest of the world's most surprising countries got where they are, subscribe to Factoid Pop. This is just the beginning.